Hey everyone, welcome back to Retail Talks, episode number 6. Excited for today's topic, but before that, I am your host, Cody Fitzgerald, founder of Omni Digital Group, an ad agency and software company that works in the retail space. And we're just going to really continue. We've thought of a lot of good topics for the coming weeks, and we're just going to continue to give you guys a lot of good content around data, how you can grow your business, how you can scale your business through digital advertising. But in today's topic, we're going to talk about, as a retailer, what marketing can you do as a retailer versus working with an agency. I think that there are a tremendous amount of advantages to doing things yourself. I think there are a tremendous amount of advantages of working with an agency. And we're just going to kind of answer, what are some of those big, not necessarily myths, but just things that bring you a lot of value as a retailer with working with an agency. Um, so really, just to kind of kick things off here from an overview, we're going to talk about organic versus paid advertising, doing it yourself versus an agency. The agency, just pros and cons, the way I see it, especially as an agency founder, and then doing it yourself, pros and cons. So let's just kind of dive right in. So, really, let's talk about the organic and paid advertising. So, when it comes to organic, we as an ad agency, when I first started Omni Digital Group, one of the things that we did was help people with organic content. And I think that it wasn't necessarily a mistake, but when it comes to your content as a business and as a retailer, I do not think that you should have an agency helping you in your organic content. And here's why. Organic content needs to be very local, at the local level, with your employees, with your customers, with your people, with vendors, with brands. That true, as it really just is, that organic in-store experience. I don't think that there's a lot of value that an agency can bring with helping you actually execute that from afar. Can they make it easier? Can they post? Can they help you come up with ideas? Of course, of course. And we can help our clients do that as well. But it's just one of those things where organic is very hard to do from afar. And we saw that as an agency. It's going to be very general. It's going to be very, you know, generic in the posting and the language that's used, because as an agency, we don't know all of the things about your community, maybe the little slogans you have, the things that you say, that type of stuff. Now let's kind of hit on the paid advertising. The paid advertising side is very easy to do from afar, and here's why, and here's the biggest difference. You're coming up with 1 to 2 social media posts per day, 30 to 60 a month, versus creating 5 to 10 very quality ads is a lot different. In an ad versus an organic post is always going to feel a little bit different, whether it's the length, whether it's what you're talking about, because with a paid ad, the only people that see it are the people that are displayed the ad. Not everyone sees it that follows your page or just organically comes to your page. So there's a lot more control over the messaging of what people are seeing. And from everything that I've experienced, um, I would say, just to do rough numbers, I would say 70 to 80% of retailers do organic content pretty well. They're posting daily, they're getting products that they sell out there on their Facebook, their Instagram pages, the ones that we work within. But paid advertising, and I've said it on the podcast before, I mean, if you go to the Facebook ads library right now, you Google Facebook ads library, your competition locally is probably not running ads. And it blows my mind every day to really see that. Um, but it's the truth. And so that means that there's less competition there. But it's also a pay to play game, right? You have to pay to do the paid ads versus organic is free. So, but I think the number one benefit of working with an ad agency on the paid side is we have the context and the knowledge of what all of our clients are doing and what is working. And if you run 20 campaigns in a year, we run 20 campaigns in a week. So we can just see a lot more variety of what retailers are doing and what is working at a much quicker, really just level. We see what's working in a week versus taking a year to really do that. Um, let's look at just those agency pro and cons in general to kind of move from that organic versus paid. Um, I think the biggest pro, I'll just kind of hit on one of each. The biggest pro of working with an ad agency is the experience that they have of working with so many clients across the the retail scope, at least for us. We work with retailers in the industries of shoes and menswear and the outdoor space. So, what an outdoor retailer is doing might be different from what a shoe retailer is doing. So we can bring you that knowledge that you maybe necessarily don't get, on that day-to-day basis. But even just collectively, what is a shoe retailer in Louisiana doing versus a shoe retailer in Illinois doing? We can just share those best practices, and that knowledge is just valuable in and of itself, even if we're not executing, anything for you. Because in my 8 years, I mean, we've run thousands of ad campaigns. So, I think that that's a big thing, really, just to think about. So, just kind of keep that in mind, when you're thinking about working with an agency. And then from a con perspective, it's just you don't have as much of that personal feel. I mean, it's funny because as an ad agency, we work with third party clients, but I'm very big on doing things in house. We have an in house graphics designer, we have an in house videographer, we have an in house developers, we have in house account managers. The copywriting portion. I'm just very big on having everything in house. So I get it when you, as a retailer, you want to do things at your store level and not use an agency. I get it. Trust me. Um, but the collective knowledge that you gain by working with an agency, I think, outweighs that. And even if you just use them at a consulting level, I think is big. And then doing it yourself pro and doing it yourself con. I think probably one of the biggest pros is really just you get to build out and scale that out over time. Like, let's say you have a specialist on staff that starts with social media, and then you bring on somebody that helps with the graphics and then the video, and then you bring more of those people on, and you can build an actual team around it, which I think is such a big advantage, in doing that. And then really just the doing it yourself con, I think, is almost like the exact opposite of what I just said. Is what happens if all of those people just leave? You know what I mean? Or one or two of them quit. You're kind of starting from ground zero unless you documented a lot of that within your business as far as your system for doing it. It's going to be tough to to do that. So let's kind of go into, yourself, a couple more just strategies that I would really recommend. Do organic posts on all forms of social media for a long time and be extremely consistent in the number of posts in your message. That's one of the biggest things that I would recommend from an organic level is you have to be really, really, really consistent. And you've got to post every single day, multiple times a day. I would be posting upwards of 10 to 14 times a week would be my recommendation. Um, Another example of things you can do yourself is just, during those store events, sending out newsletters, via email and direct mail, promoting the event. Um, the direct mail space, I think, has still a big place, in the retail segment, more so than I think people give it credit for. And when you look at all of the posts that you're doing and the events that you're having and the product you're getting in and the sales you're having and all of these different, what we just call categories here at Omni, is you can use us as an agency to tie all of this together. The paid advertising, like an agency, does get people to your page, and organic marketing, um, which is what you do, keeps them there. That's something I've always said, because let's say you have 5,000 people that follow you on Facebook. Mm, Today, maybe 300 to 400 people are going to see that on your page, 5%, 8%. But paid advertising, you could reach 5,000 people for $30, $40. So, you don't have to spend a ton of money to have a lot of people see it. But when people get to your page from the paid social, having a lot of stuff that they can see is very helpful and relevant, within that. So let's just kind of hit on a couple questions that we thought of within this category. So how many times a week should I be posting organic content on my social media? Every single day. Every single day. We just hit on that. I mean, think about it, guys. Like, social media is like the ocean. You could post 37 times in a day and it's still going to be a pebble being thrown into the ocean. 5 to 8% of the people that follow you are going to see that. When you post it an hour later, it could basically go out of the feed. So think about that. If you post something and an hour later, pretty much nobody is really going to see it. I mean, that means you could post 10 to 12 times a day and you're going to get a much better result because people are on the platform at different times. People consume different types of content at different times. People consume content on LinkedIn versus Facebook versus TikTok versus Instagram at different times of the day. You just can't overthink this stuff. What type of marketing should I leave up to an agency? I think the biggest marketing that I would always leave, like just obviously putting you in myself in your shoes as an agency owner, is the paid advertising side. There are just things that we see and know about that you're just not really going to know about um, doing, because of the volume of stuff that we do for different clients. So that's probably the one thing I would say is the paid advertising on social media. Um, Long term, what is the balance percentage between organic and paid advertising? So, I just recommend if you run paid advertising and your business is growing, keep going, keep going, keep spending more, keep spending more. One of the things that, I always kind of joke about is Coca-Cola and McDonald's are not thinking about this year, how do we spend less on advertising? Yes, they could be thinking about how to be more effective, but they're not thinking about spending less. They're thinking about how can we spend, instead of a billion, how can we spend 1.1 billion, and out of that extra 100 million we spend, how do we get an additional 700 million in sales? So it's constantly pushing that bar um, of how much you're spending and the result you're getting, and that's, in my opinion, that's what causes small businesses to stagnate, is they do it to themselves. They pull back, they order less product, they advertise less, they don't think of second, third, fourth, fifth store if that's what you actually want. But specifically with the marketing, they get to where they're spending a comfortable level and then they never increase it. Well, how do you expect to keep growing and growing and growing? Again, yes, you can get more effective with the money you're spending, but there's a certain, if you look at it as an equation, there's a certain percentage that you have to um, do, between um, the effectiveness and what you're actually spending. So, what are the common misconceptions and doubts people have when it comes to working with an agency? So, I would say one of the biggest things is really just they've never done it before, so they just don't really know um, how it's actually going to go. And I think the way that we really set you at ease here with Omni is, as long as you're communicating with us well, we give you an account manager, we give you a digital strategist, we call it, and your sales executive to work with. And we are there to help you and we want to help you. Um, so those are just a couple different things. But I think another misconception is we're not going to understand your business. I think we're going to understand it at a very deep level. Certainly not as deep as you. I mean, that's going to be very hard to replicate. But I think that's just a misconception I often hear. Um, that would be a big thing. But working with an agency, there's just so much you can learn and pull out of us as an agency that you can't out of another employee, because they only have maybe context within your business or one other business, where our account managers and digital strategists are working across dozens of different clients. All right, and final question here: is digital marketing the only way I can keep my business afloat growing in 2024, as we're approaching it here in October 2023 and onwards? Um, no, but it's a massive, massive aspect to that. It really blows me away to think about, like, let's take Facebook as an example. Facebook has over 3 billion users, and people are still not running ads on Facebook. Like, guys, like, this is Like, you think about starting a business in the 90s or early 2000s, or, even before that, the 80s. Those business owners, they didn't even have the option that companies do today. And we almost take it for granted, like back then it was just radio, TV, and paper. That was it. You didn't have Facebook, you didn't have LinkedIn, you didn't have email, you didn't have texting, certainly not as effective as it is today. And I think that there's just so much that businesses can do, that they leave so much on the table that we'll talk about in future podcasts. But I'm so bullish on the data aspect of Facebook and all these different social media platforms. When you ran a TV ad back in the day, you just ran a TV ad. There wasn't any targeting. You could put it on a certain channel, during sports or during the news. Um, but there wasn't the, people liking pickles. Like, you didn't have those type of options today that you do. And it's incredible, the area that we live in, the era, um, for advertising and for business growth. So I really just encourage you to keep, um, continuing to grow your business and your knowledge base within digital advertising, whether you use an agency or not. All right. So let's talk about just a couple key takeaways. So, costs associated with hiring someone in-house to do your marketing, as well as training, them on the time component. That's another thing I haven't really hit on, but you think about, typically an agency is going to be about, half as much. Even if you have, like, even if you have our full services, every single thing that we offer, it's going to be just about as much as what a full-time person would be. But we're handling 4 to 6 areas to help you with your marketing versus just one, of what somebody would do on just graphics or just Facebook or just email or just text or just video or just data. We're combining all of that together for the same price that you would get one full-time hire, and you get, basically 5 to 6 individuals that are helping you to grow your business. Then you gotta train them. You have to know stuff. They have to learn stuff. There's a huge learning curve that if you leverage an agency properly, you can pull so much out of them over the period of, even if you only work with them for a couple years, to get you to a place where you can have a full-time in-house individual. Um, Second key takeaway I want you to really take away is the advanced and large team you would have at your disposal working with an agency. Like I just said, you're going to have 5 to 6 individuals that you're working with that have different domain expertise in each area. Um, and that's big, because to hire 5 or 6 people full time to do that, I mean, you'd pay 5 or 6 times more, than what you would pay us to do, which is just not, it's not really economical, for your business. And it's impossible to do everything right yourself while running operations. This is the problem that we see with so many different retailers is, you know, I don't blame them for not fully executing on their marketing. But when you think about, we go to a lot of trade shows. They go to trade shows, they buy hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of product, and then they don't think meticulously around how to market that product and how to move it quickly so you can do reorders so that you can get more turns for your most popular product. That's a very common thing within retail, is the turns. You buy a shoe, do you turn it 4 times, 6 times, one time? Is it not a good seller? And marketing can speed that up, within that. So those are just a couple key takeaways, of everything. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the podcast. We really appreciate you listening. Next week, we're going to talk about we're going to have really just different segments monthly now. We're going to talk about how to get a jump start in collecting your data, how to get started using data. I thought of an analogy of data right now is the same way and should be viewed the same way as when e-commerce and the internet first came on the scene, in the late 90s, early 2000s. If you don't have a website today, it's not like you're going out of business by any means if you're a brick and mortar retailer, but you really lose out on a lot of sales and your business will just stagnate. Same thing with data. You may not go out of business if you don't use data, but your business is going to be very sluggish and stagnate because you're not able to execute like retailers that would be using data in their business would. So we're just gonna talk about how to get started with that, and really starting to utilize it. because if you don't, you're just going to get left behind. So see you guys on the next episode. Appreciate you so much. This is your host, Cody Fitzgerald on Retail Talks, and we'll see you next time.